Will a home church gathering involve teaching and worship? And if so, where will this come from?
Yeah, great question. Yes, so home churches, when we gather, will involve worship, teaching, prayer, prophecy, breaking bread together. We look at the book of Acts. We will do what the early church did together in our home churches. And it's just interesting as well. I think sometimes maybe our view of worship is it's something that's done up front and people sing and we follow their lead. And worship is the way we live our lives. Worship is a lifestyle, and it's not just the platform, but it's gathering together and reading the Psalms together and worshiping in that way. It might be someone brings a guitar and they can sing, and someone who wouldn't be leading worship up the front, but in their home church with 15 to 20 people, I'd give it a go, and I would never do it up the front, but it's empowering people in the gifts that they might have that God's given them to say, let's worship together in maybe ways that we hadn't thought we could do before.
It's about the body coming together as believers, worshipping together. As we look around the room, we see so many gifts in this room, and we want to see those all active. But the way the model was in the old, on a Sunday when it was one person leading worship, one person preaching, one person, we weren't able to do that. But when we multiply that by 10, 15, 20, 40 into hundreds, we see hundreds of people activating their gifts, their physical gifts of teaching and worship, but also the spiritual gifts. We want to see spiritual gifts active like they've never known before. We can't wait for the day when we hear testimony about people coming to home churches, getting healed, getting delivered, having prophecies, having homes just being given to them just in an instant. And that's going to be possible because we're broken down into smaller churches, into smaller communities across the city. One of the scriptures that's been coming back to us is 1 Corinthians 12. And we believe that everyone can prophesy, that everyone can speak in tongues, that everyone can pray for people and they'll be healed. Everyone can have a word of knowledge. And we want to see those gifts activated, not in one person in the front, but in a body of believers right across the city and into the nations.
Yeah, 1 Corinthians 12 says we're one body but many parts. And each one of us in this room, we make up one of the many parts. And your gift might be serving, it might be hospitality, it might be teaching, it might be prayer, whatever it might be. We're just so excited for what is going to be unlocked and unleashed and how God's going to impact homes, communities, streets, neighborhoods. Just to say as well, there will be some teaching that comes from the main hub, and that will be done in homes as well. So there will be an element, but as we feel led, that will be kind of laid out.
Yeah, and that might sound really scary. I can't do that, I can't do that, I can't do that. And the thing is, you don't have to be an expert, and we're all learning. And so if you would say, yeah, I'm willing to join the journey, I believe that the Lord will help us and we'll help one another. I think it's easier to make a mistake in front of 5, 8, 9, 10 people than it is in front of 500 people. And if we're all learning and growing together, we're becoming better people, better followers of Christ, ultimately reaching more people across our region and beyond with the good news of Jesus. So that's our desire. And I am thrilled that there are many, many churches across the UK that now identify as part of the All Nations movement. And that's over in the States. We now have an All Nations movement leadership team in America. And Lawrence Neeson, our friend, is leading that for me. We also have a nations team that's developed. And these are with Chris and Catherine, myself and Esther, Simon and Abby over in Zambia. They arrived this last week safely. Chris and Catherine will be here with us from Wales next week. Ladan from Iran. That little team is looking at what God is saying to us about the nations and how we develop that as well. So over in India, there's the growing work over there. So it's a thrill to see what God is doing. And I don't normally tell this, but I mentioned it to somebody. It might help you on your journey with us. That I have spoken at, I think, between 8 and 10, if I did the count, I could tell you, major leadership conferences in the last 8 weeks. So Elim, Scotland, the Evangelical Alliance Conference, the Vineyard Pastors, I could go on, who are all asking, what is God saying and what are you doing and what should we do? Which is a very encouraging thing to me, that in leadership around the UK, of hundreds of leaders, that maybe thousands now, that we've been able to speak to in the last 2 months, who are all interested in what God is saying to us because they're hearing something similar and they want to be on the journey. And so I'm hoping that's an encouragement to you, that we're not isolated on our own, doing our own thing, but there is something fresh God is saying across the piece.